I'd like to welcome Dr. Patrick Hines to the stage to tell us more about functional fluidics.
So 5 minutes, so we got to be efficient. So it is wonderful to be here today. I'm really excited to be here talking to Pointe because they were one of the earliest investors that we had, and so they were a big part of getting us up off the ground. So I'm Patrick Hines. I'm founder and CEO of Functional Fluidics. I'm a scientist. I'm the technical founder, developing technology in which the company is based. I'm also a pediatric ICU physician. And so anything I do, whether it's research or certainly a venture like this, it all comes down to the patients that really are the driver for what we do. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story because I think that matters in terms of why you should care. There is a young man, 18 years old, same age as my oldest son, as I think about it. He was a college freshman, theater major, working on the set of a play, developed excruciating pain in his arms and legs, and was taken emergently to the emergency department, where he was found to have significant worsening pain, migrated to his chest, oxygen levels dropped, ended up having a cardiac arrest, emergent heroic procedures, but unfortunately this young man passed away. And tragic story, but not unfortunately unusual in sickle cell disease. So people living with red cell conditions like sickle cell disease are managed based on their clinical manifestation of disease, and we know very little about their red blood cell biology, which has been a big barrier in the advancement in sickle cell disease. So in sickle cell disease, because we focus on symptoms and not the biology, this has been a major hindrance for companies that are investing billions in these clinical trials. In fact, $2 to $5 billion has been lost in cumulative dollars in late-stage clinical trials. And this isn't just small companies. These are companies like Pfizer and Novartis with some of the most recent epic failures of late-stage clinical trials in red blood cell health. One of the problems is that there's a lot of biologic heterogeneity. We all have very different biology, but this is not taken into account when we recruit patients in these trials and we look for endpoints. And for people that are actually treated with these therapies, once if they become FDA approved, these treatments are $40,000 to $100,000 per year per patient, where about 50% of these patients do not have the intended clinical impact. And so let me be clear, the drugs aren't failing because they don't work. They fail because they're tested in the wrong patients. And we've developed a solution to be able to solve for that, which we think is going to revolutionize care of people with sickle cell disease and other red blood cell disorders. So our solution is an integrated red blood cell functionomics platform that allows us to translate the clinical insights into biology. We are able to stratify patients based on their red blood cell health phenotype. We can enrich for responders. The 40% of patients that are likely to respond to these therapies, we can identify them biologically. And this, in the clinical context, such as the young man I was talking about earlier, can reduce ineffective therapy and predict and prevent these vaso-occlusive crises, which are the major drivers of costs in the healthcare system for these patients. So what is the platform? So it's a 3-tier platform consisting of proprietary diagnostics, the data that is built on a population scale from these diagnostics, and then the insight delivery. So we're taking biology and we're turning it into high-value decision-making tools. The economics of this, so high-value platform, just in what we project for 2027 alone. For our pharmaceutical contracts, on average, these are about $600,000. For the clinical patients who benefit from the preventative potential for these tests, $750 to $850 per test. These patients with these chronic diseases like sickle cell disease are tested 2 to 4 times a year over a lifetime. There's about 100,000 individuals affected by sickle cell disease in the United States alone, 60,000 in the European Union, 25 million worldwide. So this is a big global problem. For us, in 2027, in terms of our projections, 14 million in projected revenue just in the sickle cell disease indication alone, with about a 60% margin as anticipated. This isn't just theory. These are active revenue-generating projects that we're actively working on. So our largest customer, Pfizer, we're managing their $5.4 billion red blood cell health portfolio and describing how that drug is acting biologically. Fulcrum Therapeutics, a smaller company, but still focused in red cell health, focused in sickle cell disease. We've been in a long-term, multi-year relationship with recurring business. CSL Varian is an example of a larger pharmaceutical company, about a year of engagement with them, with the opportunity to grow and expand, much like we've done with Pfizer and Pointe. But we talked about other larger market indications. This isn't just theory, we're actually showing way ahead of schedule that we're able to land contracts with other indications, such as cardiovascular disease. So Johnson & Johnson MedTech, we're validating one of their cardiovascular support devices and its impact on red blood cell health. Safi Biotherapeutics is in cellular therapy. We're validating their cellular products that are developed. And outside of research and clinical care, we're engaged with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, the largest pediatric healthcare system in the world, and right here at home, the Children's Hospital of Michigan, where we're defining red cell health in the real world setting. We're at an inflection point. So we've demonstrated product market fit. Now we're talking about scaling across our major engines of revenue generation. So clinical send out. This is where we give access to the real world in these tools. This is recurring, reimbursed precision diagnostics with expanding utilization and payer coverage. Biopharma partnerships, these are high margin 6 to 7 figure partnerships embedded across drug development programs. And large market indications, we're taking the same platform technology from the rare disease like sickle cell disease and plug and play into larger market indications like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and health and wellness. That's how we go from $5 million in projected revenue in 2026 to $134 million projected revenue in 2030. So we have one job. That's to define red cell health at a population scale, accelerating drug development and improving clinical outcomes. The ask. We're a revenue stage company. We're closing a $5 million bridge. We've got 28% of that remaining that we need to close this quarter. And we're going to be raising a $12.5 million Series A by the first quarter of 2027 to scale the business across biopharma and clinical channels. We'd love for you guys to continue to support us. Talk to me after the talks if you're interested. Thank you very much.